What type of environment do you encounter when you enter each situation? What role do you play, and who is your audience? As a barista, the environment that I encounter would be like during the weekdays, it's very peaceful, it's very calm. Everyone's just kind of there to get work done. We always have like some kind of classical music playing in the background just to kind of keep that peacefulness of it. Um, and then the role that I play is like I'm there to make drinks, I'm there to prepare food, I'm there to just kind of give the person who's ordering the food or drink a little pick me up to kind of help them out with like their work that they're trying to get done. Or as I like to call it, everyone likes to get their sweet little treat of the day. My audience would, in this case, would be like the customers that are coming into the cafe. And then as a student, the environment that I encounter is quite similar. However, the only difference would be is that I'm the one doing the work that time. Like it's a different, like I'm there to get my work done. Um and the role that I play is obviously a student, and who is my audience. In this case, my audience would be my peers as well as my professors. Because I am in a work setting, I do try to present myself in a more professional manner, in a way that people will take me a little more seriously. And I also try to present myself with a little more authority, just because of like what my role is at my job. Um, so that's how I typically have to present myself. Um, Whereas in a school setting, as a student, I present myself as a student. I present myself as somebody who is trying to learn. The setting being like a classroom with a teacher teaching us whatever subject they are there for. And then, what would you identify as the backstage and the front stage regions for each situation? My backstage as a barista would be like the bar, or like the cash register, or like food slash baked items, or sometimes it can even be like in like the way back where like the dishes are. Um, my version of like the backstage as a barista is kind of having that communication with my coworkers. Um, a lot of the times people don't really see what goes on behind the scenes, like we're juggling like 10 different things at the same time, trying to get them all done in a timely manner, while also kind of keeping up with the cleanliness of the cafe, as well as our own hygiene, having to wash our hands every like 2 minutes. Um, whereas the front stage is that we come off as like these like baristas who just have like a peaceful job, and like are like the being nice and having like customer service skills and great interactions with the customers. And then my backstage as a student, in this case, would be like me at home doing all like the studying, all the work, and all this effort to in order to really do well once I get to the front stage, which in that case would be like my in-person classes where my professors are, to just kind of like show them what I have been able to learn and really present like the like I guess like what I achieved rather than like how I got there. Um And then for the question of what type of appearance, manner, dress do you bring to each situation? When I am in a work setting as a barista, the way I try to present myself as like an outward appearance, I try to make myself look put together. A lot of the times I do come in with my makeup done. I will have my hair back and up, and make sure all the little flyaways and baby hairs are set down, just so that I can prevent any kind of like hair falling out or anything like that, because it happens. It's normal. I also make sure that I look clean and that I smell nice and all my clothing is wrinkle free. And I specifically like to put on like black clothing. Our dress code doesn't specify that we have to only wear black clothing, but I just personally like to, because working in a cafe, you're very prone to spilling, you're like things falling and just a mess. And I've noticed that when I wear black clothing, it's not as likely to show up. Whereas if I were to wear something else like a white shirt, then it would you would be very visible. Um, I always have an apron just to kind of protect me from most of the spillage, like that people get to see. Whereas like when I drop something, like you can't see my feet or my legs, so like that's different. Um, but as a student, appearance wise, I tend to just kind of come in with what I'm comfortable in or what I like to wear, but not so much like dress up, since I don't really see the point in it, and I honestly just don't really have the time to. And a lot of the times I'm not really there to make myself like appear nicely. I'm mostly just there to kind of get my work done and then go home and do other things. How are your facial expressions, body language, and so forth different in each situation? Um, at any work setting, my facial expressions, I always tend to smile. Like, I try to keep a smile for as long as possible. I try to make my body language like approachable. Like, I don't just kind of sit there and like look at people like in a mean way. I try to like direct my body towards them when I'm talking to them, if I'm the one that's ringing them up, or when I'm handing off their drinks. Like, I'm like, thank you so much, like, have a nice day, or like things like that, just to kind of make them feel welcome, make them feel like, they belong here. Um, Whereas in the school, I'm mostly just kind of present myself with like no filter. Like, I just present myself with how I am. I smile if somebody looks at me or like that, but for the most part, I keep it pretty simple. Like, I don't think I would consider myself to be not approachable, but I also don't consider myself to be like super approachable. I think there's a huge difference. Um, what kind of things do you say in each situation? This one is a little tricky, but a lot of the times in a work setting, like a lot of the phrases that I tend to ask is like, hey, what can I get started for you today? Or like, hey, what can I get for you today? Or just kind of things along those lines. Um, if I'm the one handing off the drinks, I'm like, here you are. Is there anything else I can get you? Like a straw, a cup carrier? Um, or I'll say things like, thank you so much, have a wonderful day, or have a wonderful evening, depending on what time of day it is, things like that. Mostly it's just like greeting people. Whereas in school, I kind of say more like short little phrases like, hey, good morning, how are you? Or like, hey, how was your weekend? Things like that, just short, simple, and straightforward. All right, next question. How convincing are you at managing the impression you want to make on others in each of the two situations? Are there things you do and say in one situation that would be inappropriate or absurd in the other? I would say I am pretty convincing with being a barista. I have been doing this for a couple of years now, and I know it like the back of my mind. Like, I know a lot of the ingredients that go into these drinks. Like, I know like how we can accommodate these different drinks. So a lot of the times, like if like a customer wants something but it's not like an actual drink, I'll be like, hey, do you like mean this because that's kind of what you're describing, or just kind of things like that, which kind of answers the next part of the question for the other role that I have. Like, that would be a lot of the times it's seen as inappropriate for you to correct the teacher, because they're the ones that, for the most part, are the ones that are explaining the material to you. Although a lot of the times, like, yes, it is normal for professors to also make mistakes, but it's just not very common for them to, in like a school setting I'm talking about. So I guess that would be seen as kind of like inappropriate, like calling out a teacher, but like, hey, you're wrong. Um, and then like vice versa. As a student, the impression that I try to give off is like, I sit there, I'm quiet, and I try to get my work done. I ask questions when I don't understand something, and it would be inappropriate if I were to ask those things like in my job out of nowhere and be like, hey, how do I make a cappuccino? Even though I've been doing that for years and I've made probably thousands of those, that would be like, what the heck? That's absurd. Like, why are you asking that? Last and final question. Who are you in each situation? Do you present a slightly different version of yourself in each, and why? In a work setting, I am kind, I am friendly, I am approachable, I have customer service skills, I am there to help you figure out what you want, and if you don't know what you want, then that's okay. I present myself in a more professional manner, and I present myself in a more talkative manner as well. In school, I don't really tend to talk much. I just kind of am there for like one purpose. Whereas at work, it's like I don't particularly have a choice. I have to be interacting because it can cause conflict in my work if I don't have these important interactions and ask these important questions. Whereas a student, like I said, I don't speak too much. I really only talk when I feel it's necessary. I think in these cases, I do have to present myself slightly different just because it really just has to do with the environment that I'm in, and it would be inappropriate of me to just be like the kind of student that speaks a lot or disrupts the class, whereas that's kind of fairly normal in a work setting. Like sometimes you have to disrupt the other person because they could be doing something wrong. Like let's say like a miscommunication happened and I asked somebody to make a latte, and our lattes typically come in 2% milk, but then the person last minute decided, oh, actually, can I do that with almond milk? Then I have to correct the barista who's making the drink and be like, hey, like they want that with almond milk, by the way. Or like if I were to kind of just abruptly interrupt someone in a class setting, that would be inappropriate. So I have to present myself in these different ways according to what is appropriate in each setting.